everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. Jessie has joined us here in New York. So delighted to have you, Jessie. Jessie is a key account manager in LinkedIn and recently has just written Carry That Quota. How are you, Jessie?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're so delighted to have you, and it's really great to have, I think, if I'm right, you're our first guest overseas. So thank you for joining us. I would love for you to introduce yourself, kind of a little bit about a background of your career to date in LinkedIn, and then we can go into the most exciting bit about it, being an official author.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my name is Jesse Rothstein. I have been, I'd say, in the sales profession a little over 15 years, and have had the opportunity to work for a number of large traditional kind of multinational companies, as well as a few startups. And I've also had the opportunity to work both here in the U.S. as well as overseas, primarily in the Asia Pacific region. Spent about 4 years in Sydney, Australia, and covered Australia, New Zealand, and parts of Southeast Asia.
Look at you! I'm a little bit jealous.
I'd say I consider myself a career sales professional.
Mm-hmm.
Have done mostly B2B sales roles, and I love the profession. I think highly of the profession. I think that salespeople play a unique role in the world as both problem finders and problem solvers for companies.
Definitely.
And about 5+ years ago, I had a very, very unique interaction with a client who over time became a friend. And this idea of writing a book sort of came to fruition, and the seed was planted. And then the work began as a side project. And, little over about a month and a half ago, the book was published globally, and it's designed to help salespeople get better at the craft.
It's amazing. Congratulations. It really
Thank
shows
you.
that anything can happen if you put your mind to it, or what you've done in the last couple of years. I'd love to learn more about the book. It sounds like you have had a career that's really brought you around the world. So can you tell me a little bit more about the inspiration behind the book?
Yeah. So I think the inspiration around the book, as I mentioned, that client conversation and that client dinner,
Mm-hmm.
it actually happened in Auckland, New Zealand, and a lot of the conversation stemmed around the idea of doing things for both your current role, but also your future role, and to a certain extent, like your legacy, and what are you doing now in your life, both at work and outside of work, that's going to be around when you no longer are. And
Totally.
that's a really big theme in New Zealand. It's a big theme around the world, where I think we all need to be thinking about how we're giving back and how we're serving others in our current time, but then also obviously in the future. And I frankly believe that the sales profession gets a bad rap in society. Most people sort of think that salespeople are shady and slimy, and they're kind of only out for themselves. And my thesis in the book, and my belief wholeheartedly, is that that's not the case. I think that sales, when done the right way, is a beautiful profession. And I argue in the book that whether you're just starting out in your career, or if you're a little bit more mature and senior in your career, that sales demands more respect in our society. And the book sort of hones in on the defense of that thesis, and goes into greater detail on better understanding if sales is right for you as a profession, how to flex relationships with, clients and colleagues and your manager within your own organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then also some very tactical details on how to get better as a salesperson, but also just how to get better as a business person, with very detailed sort of tactical tips that have worked for me over the past 15+ years. And I think have application both to our work lives, but also our personal lives.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Just before we started recording, we were talking about how we're all working very hard now, probably the hardest we ever have, because in sales, regardless, you do have to the title of your book, you do have a quota, and
Yeah.
no matter what the environment is around us, we still have to hit our quotas.
Yeah.
With that, I'm interested to learn a little bit more. You have had not just a book launch, you're obviously working in a very successful career in LinkedIn, and you became a dad this year. So how do you manage it all? It's something that we hear a lot in sales when people have struggles of how do I juggle all these extra projects. So I'd love to learn any of your tips and tricks that you may have.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, I think at work, but also in life, it comes down to like priorities and
Mm-hmm.
ultimately what is most important for you, what you have going on at work and what you have going on at home. And then to me, the way that I sort of think about that is if we all know what our priorities are, we can then allocate the time that's needed to put the time and energy into what those priorities are.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me personally, um, family is and will always be first, and that's my number one priority. And I just allocate, a given amount of time, which I deem to be my most important priority. So
Of
for
course.
me, family comes first. And then when you kind of get into the workday and what am I working on, and the day to day job as a salesperson, and sort of leading and managing a team, and also just trying to optimize for client interactions. I think time management is the single most important skill that a salesperson or a business person for that matter can master. And to be completely candid, most organizations don't train their people on how to manage time.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned this really early in my career from a coach that I sort of had in my life as a role model. And it's really simple. It's just
Mm-hmm.
an absolute focus on the hours that you have in the week that you're going to be up and not sleeping, and then what your priorities are, and then planning and sticking to the plan of what you're going to be doing during that time. And some people might think it's a little bit crazy to have your hours mapped out down to the minute as to what you're doing, but for me it works.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of executing on being a dad and being a salesperson at LinkedIn, and even when doing this book over the past 5+ years, believe it or not, um, it was nothing glamorous. It was nothing sexy. It was just purely, this is what's the priority. This is the time I'm going to allocate to it, and I'm going to execute. And if something is going to get in the way of me executing, it's going to be because my number one priority, my family, something has come up, or there's something related to a client at work that is forcing me to reallocate my time. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I typically try to plan my calendar 2, 3, in some cases 4 weeks out. And when I get in the morning to the office, when I typically turn on around 8:30, 9 a.m., I'm on, and I'm on until about 5:30 or 6. And that's it. It's
Yeah.
non-negotiable. So I don't know if that helps or answers the
No,
question.
it
You tell
definitely
me.
does. And I know I've already mentioned, but now more than ever, there's a lot more things probably people are juggling. You may not
Yeah.
have a commute, but you may have kids, or there's different things going on. And I think it's really important to block out that time.
Yeah.
If it is your office hours, having your lunch, your walks, your exercise, whatever it may be. But to
Yeah.
wrap up, I think we could talk all day. Is we always ask one question, and it's if you had one piece of advice to offer to a woman in tech sales, if they were starting their career in sales or looking to advance into a leadership role, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say continue to be curious at every single thing that you do, both your curiosity internally at your own company, and also your curiosity externally with your clients or your prospects. Um, there's so much you can learn and so much you can digest just
Mm-hmm.
by having a never-ending curiosity for life. And I think a lot of times, people in their career at certain points maybe lose that a little bit as they get older.
Yeah.
But I just really believe when you're hungry and you're curious and you're always seeking out additional information externally and internally, I think that is really, really important. And I would say that, the more curious you are, the more you're going to run into things that are going to look like opportunities. And that's going to benefit you in your career, whether you want to become a leader or you want to stay kind of in an individual contributor sales capacity. As long as you're curious, typically things I think work out.
I couldn't agree more. It's definitely, you're always learning and always trying to look for new ways to learn and new initiatives. Thank you so much for joining. This has been really interesting.
Thanks for
And
having me.
one last thing is, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are interested in your book. Where can we access it, get our hands on it?
Yeah. So Carry That Quota is available globally, hard copy, soft copy, ebook on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also available in audiobook version on Audible. And depending on which country you're in, Amazon is pretty global these days, and so is Audible. But those are the primary places to get it.
Amazing. I'll definitely be taking a look, and I know there's already people who are interested, but thank you so much again. And hopefully we'll be able to have a coffee in person in the near future.
Yes. Thanks for having me. This was great, and look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you.